This limestone concretion has been cracked open with a hammer to reveal multiple elegantissimus ammonites. Unfortunately, due to the way the nodule opened, several of the ammonites were broken in half. Our dad is going to show you the process of how we restore these ammonites. Of course, it's impossible to know, opening up a rock, whether or not it will contain any fossils. So naturally, every now and again, some of them do open the wrong way. But this is why we are trained in fossil preparation. First things first, our dad is going to carefully remove much of the excess limestone. Once we have removed as much as we need to, we can then reattach the remaining pieces of the ammonite to the actual main fossil block itself. We've trimmed it down to a much more manageable size, and we can now reattach it. Once reattached, we can then begin removing the limestone, and we will quite quickly begin to see just how intact these ammonites are. This is a really satisfying process, and the result that we achieve potentially will be absolutely incredible. Now that the glue has dried, we can start removing some of that matrix. The limestone is relatively soft, and the air pneumatic pens have no problem working their way through this material. One of the longest parts of this process is removing the excess stone. That's why we started off with the saw, to remove as much as we safely could. We're getting to that part now where the ammonites are starting to emerge from within that limestone. By changing to finer, more precise tools, now that we are closer to the ammonites, we can make sure that we remove smaller pieces of limestone at a time in order to minimise the risk of damaging any of the fossils. It's pretty unbelievable how it started off with most of these ammonites being broken in half. However, after the preparation work so far, they look completely untouched and brand new. Our dad is going to apply some finishing touches to the matrix, and then we will have a look at the finished result of this specimen. There's probably an hour or two left to go for all of the fine detail finishing off touches. And here's the finished result. The ammonites are sat on a small pillar of limestone. Quite a different touch to usual, but I really like it. Let us know what you think about this finish down in the comments below. As you can see, the ammonites are now perfectly intact, with no indication whatsoever that they have been restored. We are really happy with how this turned out, all from that initial, unsuspecting ball of limestone. To think that this many ammonites were preserved together is truly unique. This limestone nodule contains a perfect Jurassic ammonite. There is a crack running through it which was naturally formed, but we've managed to stabilise it and now we can expose the fossil itself. Using the air pneumatic tools, we removed the bulk of the limestone pretty quickly. Here we're using one of our slightly bigger pens in order to remove quite a lot of the matrix at once, but when we get closer to the specimen itself, as you can see here, we're using slightly more precise tools as we get closer and closer to the finished result. After a little bit more finishing off, the fossil is now ready for display. The whole process to prepare this ammonite didn't take too long at all. Here's another similar specimen which we also prepared the same day. As you can see, this is beautifully three-dimensional and an excellent example of a Jurassic ammonite. This nodule was opened to reveal two ammonite fossils. Here you can see that when the nodule was cracked open, one of the ammonites actually has part of the outer whorl stuck to the negative or the imprint of the ammonite. Using our saw, we can cut away the piece of ammonite that we need to glue back on in order to restore this specimen. We've already got it prepared to glue on, and as you can see, we've precisely attached the correct piece with the minimum amount of limestone so that we don't end up taking too long removing lots of limestone later on for no reason. We've clamped it down, it's all secured, and here we go. All we need to do now is remove this little bit of limestone, and there you go. We've reattached the outer whorl of that specimen. There's a little ammonite preserved just next to it as well. It's already shaping up to be quite the impressive piece. Smoothing off some of the matrix, we're getting closer and closer to having the specimen ready for display. There's just a little bit more fine work to do with the air abrasives and grinders, and then we're good to go. Let's take a look at the finished result. Here we have the finished specimen. As you can remember, when it was first opened, the ammonite was broken, the little ammonite wasn't even on show at all. And after some careful preparation, we now have this incredible fossil piece that can be displayed forever. What a cool find! This limestone rock contains a large Harpoceros ammonite. You can see it needs some restoration. When the nodule was opened, a tiny piece of the ammonite had initially broken away. As we're preparing it and removing the limestone, we're also constantly ensuring the ammonite fossil remains intact. Using a variety of tools, we start to remove the bulk of the limestone matrix. We can very quickly see more and more of this ammonite being exposed. We need to stabilise part of the back of the nodule to ensure that it remains sturdy for many years to come. This involves mixing up a putty to then restore part of the back of the limestone where it needs to be a little bit stronger to hold it together properly. After waiting a few hours, the nodule's now ready to have the tape removed and we can continue preparing it. The next steps after removing some more of the limestone will be to repair the larger ammonite, but we also managed to uncover a tiny little specimen just at the edge of the rock. We'll also be preparing the smaller ammonite and keeping it together as one big fossil specimen. We've already used many different tools to get the fossil to the stage it is now. The next thing is to repair the larger ammonite. Quite quickly we're able to mix up this different type of putty that we can then mould into the shape of the specimen. There's still a few more hours work to go on this fossil, but fast forward and we're almost there. In just a moment we'll see the finished fossil specimen. We can't wait to show you it. After a few more hours work, here we have the finished result. It's unbelievable to think that we started out with that big bulky limestone rock with only part of this ammonite revealed, and now, after many hours of skilled preparation, we have the finished Jurassic ammonite, 180 million years old, fully restored in all of its glory. You can just see all the way down to the centre of that specimen. The very skilled, fine work involved to reveal the very centre of these ammonites is really difficult. There's also another different species of ammonite preserved alongside it. What an incredible ammonite specimen.